Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for attending the Basketball's AI Revolution session. This revolution will be televised. I'm super excited to be joined by three visionary leaders from the NBA, from Prime Video, and from AWS. I'll start with Chris Benyarko. Chris, the Executive Vice President of Direct-to-Consumer at the NBA. Tons of responsibility that we're going to get into shortly. I had to pull his teeth on this one, but he says he was a Knicks fan while he was growing up. So we'll go with Knicks fan. Andy O. Andy's the principal of live sports events with Prime Video, responsible for leading the efforts to bring the NBA on board to Prime Video and helping to lead that partnership. Lakers fan.
Missed the memo to wear the t-shirt instead.
Okay. Christian Schaff. Kristen's our global director of sports partnerships, responsible for basically all of the partnerships you see here in the sports forum. And maybe the saddest fan of basketball in the room, she's a Seattle Supersonics fan.
R.I.P.
Ruining the day in July of 2007 when the Sonics moved away. I'm a Warriors fan, as you can tell. I'm part of the sports marketing team. Excited to dive in today. And Chris, I'm going to start with you, and we'll start super easy today. When are the Sonics coming back to Seattle?
Well, absolutely.
Oh, never mind. Sorry, wrong card. We just announced this partnership. The partnership with the NBA was announced between AWS and the NBA just back on October 1st. It's a brand new partnership, and I just wanted to start very easily with what excited you most about the partnership with AWS and transitioning to AWS as a technology partner?
Well, first I would say AWS is a technology and an innovation partner for us. And when we think about partnering, we really were focused on first, it was a shared vision. You know, you hear a lot about customer obsession. We call it fan and future fan obsession. And then obviously AWS from a technology standpoint allows us the ability to really operate and integrate in a different type of way. And once you have that foundation of technology and you have a shared vision, that really allows you to supercharge innovation. We think that's going to really great outcome for us.
Love the speed of innovation we've seen so far, even just being a couple of months in. Kristen, we have a huge portfolio of sports partners, as you can see here in the forum. What was it about the NBA that we got most excited about?
Well, first, welcome to the Sports Forum. I hope many of you have had the opportunity to take a look around and see some of the ways that AWS is partnering with some of the world's leading sports organizations and really harnessing the power of their data to revolutionize how the game is watched, managed, and played. So if you haven't had the opportunity, take a look. Some really cool stuff out there. And I think one of the through lines you'll see across what you see is innovation. And that was one of the things that really drew us to the NBA, is that culture of innovation. And it starts from the top down. It starts with Adam Silver. If any of you have ever heard Adam Silver talk, he's the commissioner of the NBA. He's very bullish on innovation and his leadership team. That goes down through the entire organization, and you can really feel it. And so that's what is one of the things that really drew us to the NBA. But it's not just about innovating and using technology. It's about doing it for their customer, which is the billion-plus basketball fans all over the world. And each of those fans has a different level of basketball knowledge. They speak different languages. They can consume the sport on different platforms. So we love that opportunity too, which is how do we use AWS technology and their deep understanding of their fan and bring them those customized, personalized insights and experiences in a way that meets them where they are as a fan.
That's billion with a B. Huge number of fans globally. Andy, you led the charge getting NBA into the Prime Video portfolio, announced last year with some new broadcast partnerships this season. What excited you guys most about that NBA partnership?
Yeah, I think first of all, just plus one on the things Kristen just said. I think the two organizations, culturally, there's just a lot of similarities. And so when we actually started to sit down and talk with the NBA, that was just, the conversations were very natural, organic, and I think there was just a collective sense of excitement about what the future could bring. So I think being a little bit more specific to Prime Video, everything we do really starts with the Prime program. Right? And so we want the Prime membership to be really, really important and valuable to a customer. So, you know, a customer might sign up for any given reason, right? Shipping is probably the most common one that people might think of. But we want Prime program to, again, become truly indispensable, right? And so providing fans or customers with something that you can't get anywhere else, like live NBA playoff games, is a really good way to do that. And then secondly, adding the NBA, which is kind of an always-on 365 sports property, enabled us to build out our calendar, to really make Prime Video a home for premium Tier 1 sports on a 365-year basis. I mean, I think as many people know, we have the NFL, we have NASCAR rights, we just added the Masters coming this April, we have Champions League in Europe, and so we want Prime Video to be seen as really a destination.
And that's a pretty important point. You talk about the always-on 365. Chris, when you think about that and the way that Prime is leaning in, what excited the NBA about the new broadcast partnership with Prime Video?
Well, a lot of things. I mean, first, when we talk about 1 billion fans, and you talk about the deep penetration of a Prime membership, and we were really focused on reach and accessibility for our game. So, not many people know that, but 90% of NBA fans already have a Prime membership. So, putting games onto that platform allows that to be accessible for a lot of different folks. And then the concept of innovation was also an important piece there too. Even before we started this new level of partnership, we already had a relationship that existed with live games that also lead past our direct-to-consumer service that we partnered both in Brazil and Mexico. So it was a lot of known knowledge, a lot of things we were working on. So it gives us an opportunity, a longer runway to kind of keep innovating.
Innovation, we've heard that a couple of times already just in the conversation. I think there's some themes that I've seen across the partnerships already that seem to stand out. The first, Kristen, you mentioned, starting with the customer and working backwards, the fan, and not being afraid to push boundaries, to innovate. And so that's interesting because when you think about AI, which we're talking a lot about, that's a new and exciting area for our partnership. So Chris, I'm going to start with you on a two-part question around AI. First of all, how are you seeing AI and analytics influencing the way fans are consuming the NBA product? And the second part of that is, has there been anything you've been surprised about or that you've thought, wow, this is like really revolutionary over the past couple of years around that consumption?
Yeah, analytics has always been a major part of the NBA game. Just previous to that, we had a really great session covering around stats and things that we were doing and kind of that migration from stats that were kind of just rows and columns, very simple, to things that were more advanced as people were trying to understand the game. And since we have a lot of focus on the actual live game, having the ability to use AI to bring that advanced analytics into the live game and actually start to have that hyper-personalization, have different stats, different metrics people are focused on is a major focal point for us. So it's exciting, all the things that we're doing there. I think the thing that I'm most excited about is being able to deliver that in a more streaming-centric world. So this current season that we have, all of our games being available across digital platforms allows us to do things that you couldn't do with kind of traditional delivery, as you can have different telecast types, different type of overlays, and really expand on that experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Double mic now, so you will all hear everything. So Andy, that's an important point because you guys have been really focused on the viewing experience and the fan experience in consuming sports. Tell me a little bit more about the approach of Prime Video around that viewing experience.
Yeah, but by the way, the 3 o'clock panel, if you missed it, it was really something.
Your favorite team is the Lakers. And the viewing experience, how you're prioritizing that in your approach overall.
Yeah, well, I think just taking a step back again, I think to state the obvious, innovation is a really strong part of the culture at Amazon, right? And so every sport that we have is actually a really great opportunity to invent, right? And so it always starts with the base broadcast. I think fans have grown accustomed to watching sports a certain way, and that's really foundational. And so we're not doing anything there. We're just trying to make sure that we provide a best-in-class presentation of the game or the sport that has great talent and great quality, and that's really, really important, that it's pristine. And then from there, we actually have a way of thinking about innovation is we bring different people together, right? So we have AI experts, we have computer vision specialists, data scientists, and we actually pair them up with our production teams. They spend time with our talent, and they start to iterate on different ideas that will make sense. Because ultimately, it's all about storytelling, right? It's about bringing customers closer to the game and the action, understanding what it is that they're watching and enjoying that more. And so the bar is really high for us. We're not inventing for inventing's sake, but we really want things to, again, deepen and make that viewing experience richer. And so just getting now specific to the NBA, we have this mantra internally, it's educate and celebrate. And so we want fans to understand the why of what they're seeing, but most importantly, we want to bring a lot of joy to the broadcast. So we're really happy with the talent that we've signed. Hopefully you've seen people like Blake Griffin, first-timer, with a fresh take. And then we have really iconic voices like Kevin Harlan or Ian Eagle, voices that a fan would immediately recognize because they've just been around for so long in the sport. And so it's a nice mix of new, fresh energy and deep experience. We also invested in a brand new studio in the Culver City lot. It's massive, it's really cool, and what I would say is there's a lot of technology infused into that studio, and what it enables is our in-studio talent to really go deeper on game analysis and to tell stories and provide insights to fans that are watching. And then lastly, we launched with some new features on the viewing experience. We have a version of multi-view. Our spin on it is it's fully customizable. It lets fans watch anywhere from 2, 3, or up to 4 games at once. And the spin on it for us, based on some research we did, was we realized that even though fans oftentimes do enjoy watching multiple games at once, oftentimes they really care a little bit more about one game, right? And so we have one game in focus, which is actually a little bit larger, so it helps keep your focus there, but then you can add those other games. We have a new bet tracking integration where it's a partnership with FanDuel where you can actually follow bets that you've placed live while you're watching the broadcast. That is an opt-in experience, so that's really for people who want to watch the game that way. And then we have other integrations like shopping, making sure that we can make that shopping experience very seamless, and so you get real-time updates on deals. You can buy team merchandise.
It's come a long way since the days of picture-in-picture that I remember with the things you're doing in multi-view and then incorporating the purchasing, et cetera. You also, if you didn't happen to tune in, Black Friday was a big day for Prime Video. 15 hours of content on Black Friday. Started with PGA skins. We had an NFL game, and we had 2 NBA broadcast games as well. And on one of those games, we were super excited to have partnered with Prime Video to introduce our first Inside the Game powered by AWS statistic that you heard about in the last session called Gravity. I wonder if we could show that real quick.
It's Inside the Game, powered by AWS. Let's take a look at Gravity Stat.
Not the kind Newton talked about. This is the Gravity score measures the defensive attention a player gets above expected and how that attention opens up his teammates. And we see it here with Adetokounmpo, who draws the second most gravity in the league. We've seen it already early here tonight. Siakam is the only guy who has more interior gravity than Giannis Adetokounmpo, who has now gone to the bench because of, as you told us earlier, that minutes restriction.
I should have paid more attention to science class in 9th grade.
Well,
that's on me.
Here it is tonight, we'll see. Look at him in the post. He draws the gravity, 3 guys, 5 sets of eyes on him, 3 around him, and he gets the ball to one of the best shooters in the league in A.J. Green.
Yabusele is in, and the ball is in the hoop for the Frenchman.
He only came in shooting 27%.
Thank you. Please tell Stan Van thank you. He absolutely crushed that integration. It was amazing, amazing. Kristen, when you look at that, how are you thinking about the NBA and the different opportunities that they bring to AWS when it comes to AI and analytics?
Well, one, I love watching that because everything we're doing is really intended to bring the fan closer to the game and educate them and give them that basketball IQ. And just as a quick anecdote, I think even if you're not a basketball fan, you know LeBron James, right? He's widely considered to be one of the best players to ever play the sport. He's big, he's fast, he's strong, he's incredible. But what you may not know is he's also widely considered to have some of the best basketball IQ of any player ever. He knows what's happening on the court. He knows gravity. He understands that. And what we're really trying to work on with the NBA and broadcast partners like Prime Video is give fans that basketball intelligence. So before we introduce this stat, if you're a fan of the game, you kind of know the good players draw the defenders and that opens up other players and yay, they scored another 3. And that's exciting. But now we're able to really contextualize that with data. So we sort of think about what we do as taking the poetry of basketball and translating that into data, and then taking that data and translating it back to the fan in the form of a story. So that's really what you saw there with Gravity, and that's what we're working on with the NBA.
It also leads to some spirited water cooler talk, which I think is super fun. We're giving more data to fans to talk about what's going on the court. I want to talk a little bit about how we're thinking about managing the wealth of data. And obviously, when we look at anything that any customer is going to do with AWS around AI, you have to think about the data layer first. It's the single most important place to start to build good AI models. And if you think about specifically analytics in basketball, there's tons of ways that it's being applied to the game, right? We're seeing it applied across the broadcast. We're seeing teams apply that data and to talk about things like player performance. Broadcasts are being enhanced by the data that we're grabbing. And so I want to just quickly dive into, Kristen, back to you. What is AWS doing to help the massive amount of data that the NBA generates just on a daily basis? We heard Charlie talking earlier in the stats session about all the data we get just from the Hawkeye information. How are we helping the NBA manage that wealth of data and all of the archive data that they've already got from years?
Yeah. Well, you kind of answered the question, right? Like, you have to start with a strong foundation. And if anyone listened to Matt Garman's keynote earlier this week, I guess it was yesterday, it feels like many days ago, he talked about having to start there, which is ensuring your data is in a safe environment, clean infrastructure. And so that's what we're working on with the NBA at the outset. And then from there, once you have that strong framework for your house, that strong foundation, you can build unlimited machine learning and AI applications. And so that's all what we're working on right now at the NBA, ensuring we have that strong foundation off of which we can springboard and start telling these wow stories to fans all over the world.
I think also the data being in that environment with AWS also is all the tools that are accessible and available for you to actually do really complex things with machine learning, computer vision, that allows you to kind of unlock different ideas and concepts you were thinking about. And so I think that's a really big benefit of not just having the data there, but also having the right tools to do it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, right? Because if you think about that from here to here, right, like that is something that AWS is uniquely positioned to offer to customers and yourself.
Let's talk about that journey, Chris, because if I think about your role, if you are interacting with the NBA as a product in any form or fashion, the way you're interacting with it likely falls under Chris's responsibility, not to put any pressure on him here. But you've got the NBA app, you've got broadcast, you've got advanced analytics, you've got digital platforms. You have a wealth of ways that fans are interacting with your product. When you think about having a partner like AWS managing that data and then giving you this robust set of tools to go look at tackling priorities, how do you do that? Like, how do you then prioritize which projects are the most meaningful to put that effort into?
So it's always a hard selection. I mean, we have a great team at the NBA and a great set of folks we work with at AWS. And I could say that a lot of us are basketball lovers. And so as we're thinking through what are the right products, we're thinking about fans and what are the things that are interesting to them. We have a very large digital and social audience, so we can always get feedback in real time about things that people are interested in. So we use a lot of that as from a fan perspective, things that we're hearing to kind of decide how do we make those right priorities and which things should we focus on. But I always like to say that it's healthy to have a long roadmap and list. It allows you to think that you're really pushing to be innovative.
And we do have quite a long roadmap. In fact, I noticed in the last session there was a slide with a roadmap, which I think are some commitments of some things that we're going to hit in the coming months. So I'm very, very excited about that. Andy, you guys are thinking about AI and analytics as well, working very closely with AWS. How does the work with AWS, we fall under kind of one umbrella, but how does the work with AWS help to influence the things that you guys are doing on the Prime Video side?
Yeah, well, I think Gravity is the best tangible example we just showed that just premiered literally 3 days ago now. Feels like 3 months.
Yeah, Friday.
So,
Five.
look, I think Prime Video, we really benefit from having AWS in the family, right? Everything we're doing, we're delivering live events at scale, is all built on AWS's unmatched tech backbone and infrastructure. And so having people in the family just that we can talk to, it really makes everything faster and easier for us. That roadmap that Toby you just referenced, I was looking at that keenly too, because I think you'll start to see some of that as well. And then I think in terms of how we're presenting analytics, I think Prime Vision is actually a really good example of how we do it at Prime Video. If you're not familiar, Prime Vision is an alt feed. We have it in our TNF coverage. And so it's an alt feed that runs simultaneously to the main feed. And so that's where we can introduce things like more on-screen graphics and analytics. We have different camera angles. We have the opportunity to test things. And so that was really our lab for where we tested things like defensive alerts, which is a new feature that we've started to integrate more and more into our main broadcasts. And it's really an AI-driven model that helps predict when a defensive player might blitz, right? And so there's a lot of complex science and technology that goes into it, but what a fan ultimately sees is simply a red little circle that says, hey, watch that player, they might do something important on this play. And so that's kind of how it all comes together for us. But like I said, I think having AWS in the family is really critical to our success.
Do you think the NBA might be a good candidate for Prime Vision?
Don't have anything to announce.
Okay.
Yes.
Checks with PR, answers question. Check. Kristen, we've talked about the stats a bunch, and we don't need to dive into what defensive pressure scores are and defensive box score and
We can.
expected field goal. You can, if you'd like. But as I look around the room here, I see match insights. I see F1 insights. I've heard of next-gen stats presentations and now inside the game. Tell me a little bit more around why that's a priority for AWS. Why do we put so much effort into the advanced analytics development? And what are we seeing from kind of an outcome perspective?
Well, it's a priority for us because it's been a priority for our customers and their end customer, right? Like we've talked about bringing fans closer to the game, and that's really what our customers have tasked us with. So we obviously have a rich history, as you've mentioned, in data and analytics and bringing insights to fans through 10 years of working with next-gen stats, which, by the way, started as a single stat 10 years ago. And we've now moved into these heavily predictive analytics. And so that work we've done has continued to evolve, all intended to equip fans with deeper education and bring them closer to the game. So that's really what we're working on at the outset with the NBA as well. So we talked a little bit about NBA Inside the Game, powered by AWS. Really what that is our intelligence platform, right? And so we're starting with stats because, again, we want to deliver something to fans first, but we will continue to build off of that. As an example, with the NFL, all of the next-gen stats data feeds into the work that we're doing around player health and safety. And you've seen some of the work really play out in the form of how we've changed helmet designs, how different players are equipped with different pads based on which position they play. So there's so many derivatives that come as an output of really working on that data and analytics component. So as I think about the future of where we'll go with the NBA, we're starting with that foundation, really delivering fans with those insights. And then there's going to be so many more things to come based on us like really focusing on that data and analytics component.
And it is early days, and I'm glad you mentioned more to come because we are in the early stages. We're thinking now about what the future looks like. And so, Chris, when you think about the partnership with AWS and with Prime Video, I'm going to ask this in two parts and get a little bit, I hope, of additional information here. How are you thinking about what fans want? What are they saying they want out of the NBA product? And what are you most excited about that we may potentially deliver in the partnership with AWS and Prime Video?
I think that one of the biggest keys and factors to look in terms of fans is looking at kind of their engagement and what are the things they're interested in. The thing that's really exciting about the NBA and the game of basketball, the involvement and the way that people interact with it doesn't just start and stop with the game. There's involvement and people are interested in what's happening before. They want to discuss what's going on after. So it's a very broad perspective on how we've looked through that. And so I think we're also excited about when we talk about changing the game, things that we can do and how do we actually capture the game, how do we actually make automated highlights, how we do different camera angles, how we bring analytics in, things that we can do after the game using technology. So kind of having that appeal to a fan 24/7.
A lot of those things sound like broadcast innovation as well. So Andy, what are you guys thinking about that's new and exciting from a Prime perspective?
Again, nothing further specific to announce today, but look, what I would say, I mean, I grew up a basketball fan. I care so much about the sport, and I think in some recent years there was maybe some rhetoric that the game was boring, right? It's just ISO and threes. That's all it is. It's like you don't really have to watch. And I think what we're talking about today and what's so exciting about these partnerships is that the game is actually incredibly complex, right? The game is being played faster than it's ever been played before. The athletes are incredibly athletic. And I think all of this data and analytics, it actually helps us, again, tell those stories. That's what we're focused on. And it comes back to, again, our production ethos, which is to educate and to celebrate the game. That's what we want to do. And I think if we do that well, we're going to all grow together and see, fans really enjoy the game. That's really beautiful.
I think it's a good point about the game of basketball and a lot of opinions of how it plays. Even last season, we had a lot of threes are being shot, different concepts of how it's being played. So now having the ability to actually have data and AI and actually interject that directly into the game in real time, I think it's changed the perspective of how even people talk about the game and learn to appreciate what's really happening. It's a completely different experience when you're watching a basketball game in person versus when you're watching it through a digital channel or device. And so having the ability to bring more of that aspect of what's actually happening to the digital as someone go home, especially having users across the globe, is an important piece. Kind of talk about the game that way.
I think that's really interesting. That actually, I think about that in terms of we're now using data the same way players are, right? Like think about, we all grew up maybe playing sports, or you have kids who play sports, and like there's that moment where like the good players like really start surpassing the not so good ones, and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to be a professional. But at a professional level, you are talking about the most high performing human individuals on this planet, and having one differentiator, right, that you may get from an insight or a piece of data that helps you understand, like, my arm was, I'm a lefty, so my shooting arm, you know, it was like the wrong direction, right? And if I just fix it, like, I'm gonna get 1% better shooting free throws. Like, that matters. And I think about that within the context of the broadcast too, right? Every piece of data we can give to that fan, that matters. That makes them more intelligent. So I love what you said, and it just kind of like made me think that there's a parallel here, which is like we're making fans smarter, better in the same way that we're also helping make players better.
Yeah, that moment for me was third grade when I realized I wasn't
Yeah,
going to be
mine was
professional,
earlier
which was
than
cool,
that.
right? Yeah, it was very early. It was fine. It was fine.
I'm still in denial about it. I still think I'm a great
You
basketball
still got
player.
it. You got it.
It was when I was a Sonics fan that I lost my opportunity. when
Yeah,
they were
let's go,
taking
Chris.
it.
Let's go back to you on the Sonics real quick. So, oh, I'm getting cut off. Sorry. I do think it's interesting to point out, just anecdotally, one of the fascinating things that I saw. We talked about gravity a lot earlier today, and we've talked about it here on stage. We've done some work, and you guys were talking about the transformation of the game. We've uncovered some pretty exciting information about the game today. It's being played faster. There's more scoring. Gravity is actually higher. Defenses are playing tighter on offenses today. And so I hope that exposing these insights through stats is really going to educate fans around this. And Kristen, I'll end my last question with you, and then we can open up to folks in the room. What are you most excited about? When you look ahead to this partnership and the work that we're going to do, what excites you?
I love that question. Well, one of the things I didn't mention previously is that through our partnership with the NBA, it expands across all of their affiliates, including the WNBA. So all of the work you're hearing us talk about here in partnership with the NBA, we're also going to be doing with the WNBA. So really excited about that. We're working behind the scenes on a variety of really innovative initiatives that we'll be able to share more about as we get closer to the season. But it sort of ties back to what we've been talking about today, which is we have an opportunity to harness the power of all the data that the NBA has to bring 1 billion basketball fans from all over the world closer to the game. And so that excites me. And you know, we've been here for 2 days now. We've heard about agentic AI and how agents are going to help us perform work better, faster, right, in partnership with humans. And like, wow, what an amazing opportunity as we continue to think about how we connect with global fans who, again, like all consume the sport very differently, all have different understanding of the sport. So that's what really excites me, just the unlimited opportunity. And then you couple that with the shared passion and pace of innovation. I look at Chris because we have these conversations all the time about what's next, what's next, what's next. And so that excites me.
It is super exciting. Sorry, Andy.
Well, I want to pick up on global, by the way, which we haven't unpacked yet. But you know, our games are now live in 225 territories. We're producing games in 12 languages. I think we have an incredible opportunity to help grow the game. I think it goes without saying, so many of the top players in the league, recent MVPs, are from countries outside the United States. So I think that's something that we're really, really excited about. And then the last thing I would say is just time is on our side. And what I mean by that is this is an 11-year deal. We're 6 weeks in. But the way we've all heard it said is this is the beginning of a multi-decade partnership, right? And if you look at the media rights and the partnerships that leagues have traditionally had over time, they're generational in some sense. So we have a lot of time, and when you have time, you can invest for the future, and you can have long-term objectives and priorities and not necessarily be forced into short-term trade-offs. And I think that kind of thinking, which again, I think all of our collective organizations share, will, I think, ultimately inure to the benefit of fans globally.
It's a great reminder. We are just a few weeks into multi-year partnerships together, and we're super excited about it. We'll open it up for questions, and while we're waiting for raised hands, and I see one up here in the front, I'm going to ask a quick question because we've talked about a couple of things now with this international game. And Chris, I'm going to ask you the question. I had the opportunity to be in China last month with the team and NBA's reintroduction to that market, and I was blown away at the sheer volume and the level of excitement and passion of that market and the NBA. Tell me just a little bit about where you're excited from an international perspective, especially when you're thinking about direct-to-consumer and in China specifically, any exciting ideas and the ways you're looking at that market.
I mean, we're excited about all the international markets and kind of the expansion of the game and increase kind of engagement. There's a lot of aspects of the game of basketball that has a lot of value, not only in terms of the entertainment value, but what it teaches in terms of leadership and fitness and things along the aspect of life. So I think it has the ability to appeal to everyone globally.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you. First of all, I disagree. You're not the saddest fan. I'm the saddest fan. I'm a Mavericks fan. I guess Andy knows what I'm talking about.
Fair.
First of all, I would like to thank you guys for the game changer you did really like this year compared to previous years. I'm an all-time NBA fan, and I would like to thank the NBA and Prime Video for what you guys are showing, the stats and everything. It's really, I enjoy now, like I wait until the analysis after the game just to check all of what you talked about, Andy, which is something I wasn't doing before because it's now more fun, the statistics and everything. So my question to you is, and I don't know who can answer it, like the analytics and the data that you guys provide, like I know like some of it is on the website and on the application, you can inside the game, we can access it, etc. But you also provide this data publicly to everyone, let's say teams or fans or scouting, coaching staffs, whatever, like they want to use it. And is it just the data that you offer on the website that's available, or you have something outside of it that we can take advantage of too?
Well, I think there's different data products that we offer. So obviously for teams, they have the broadest set of data that they're using for different game planning, different training, things related to planning around player health. And obviously our broadcasters have access to data that use to storytell, and the majority of kind of the stats and information we have does exist on NBA.com and NBA app. One of the things that we're focused on, and even you'll see what we're doing in the game, is finding a way to do storytelling around the stats. So we're not just presenting, here's rows and columns of data, but providing context, putting those stats into video. Obviously, the ways that we even consume content now in terms of conversational UI and a lot of new devices and spatial things going on, we're thinking about how do we express stats in different type of ways from a content perspective.
And I love that we talked about gravity a little bit, and we saw Charlie and the team talk about the delivery of that data to the teams for them to use that they're pulling from the Hawkeye data. But then you see something like Stan Van talking about it to enhance the broadcast. And I think what we've tried to do across the portfolio of partnership is use the data in lots of different ways. There's no single way we think about a delivery mechanism for data or an output that we want. We may make a really cool VR experience with Playfinder. There are a bunch of different ways that we can enhance it. And I guess this goes back to the priority that I spoke at that we all sort of share at the beginning, which is if we start with what the fan wants and work backwards from there, and we're not afraid to innovate and maybe make some mistakes along the way, we should see some really exciting things that we can bring to light with that data. Question in the back.
Hey there. Streaming's been great for sports, but there's one spot that it's really taken us backwards in a major way, and that's just the timing delay of streaming. It's so brutal. I can be sitting there on the couch, my watch buzzes, and I know that the Broncos just kicked a field goal and they made it. You're trying to do sports bettings, and the lines are moving faster than the streaming service is. We're minutes behind the actual game that's taking place, and it's kind of causing issues from that analytical standpoint when you're trying to actually bet on games or watch them without interruption. You have to go take all your devices and hide them away. I'm curious, I know no one ever talks about roadmap, but what about like as an industry, how are we going to get faster streaming, if you will? Thanks.
I mean, I think that's something like we're collectively interested in to kind of improve and a lot of ability to use technology to kind of work on that. And a little bit of us even talking about some of the advantages of this partnership as we're working together to improve latency. It's something that we're consistently focused on, including as we're taking video that we're capturing directly from the arena and how do we take every hop that is going across and reduce the kind of latency as it gets through. But it's definitely a focal point, especially me as a fan too. I know exactly what you're talking about, that experience when you're streaming something and not trying to have it be a spoiler. So it's definitely something we're focused on.
Andy, do you find that the betting arena, I won't ask you to get specifically into that, is that driving any of the decision-making from a broadcast perspective when Prime Video thinks about what you're doing from a sports perspective?
You mean like the
Getting nearer to real time, things of that nature?
well, I mean, we obsess about it. I'll say that. So I guess the first thing that came to mind, I was smiling at Chris. This is a true story. Literally last week, our organizations got an email from a customer who was frustrated with the streaming quality on Prime Video, and we take it very, very seriously. I mean, so we had I don't know how many conversations, emails about our teams. I can say that our customer service team has reached out to this customer, had multiple calls, they've tested, there's been improvement, and so I think what I would say is we care about every individual fan, and so if there's something happening specifically with Prime Video or the NBA, I'm sure if you had reached out, I'm sure we would want to take care of that. But to answer your second question, I mean, we obsess about it. I think it's very, very important. Actually, we, again, benefit from having AWS in the house. We've used a lot of AWS infrastructure to create real-time testing to monitor the speed at which data is coming in for that exact use case that you just described, and trying to combat that to make sure that someone that is choosing to watch the game with the bet tracking feed is enjoying it in the way that we envision. So yeah, we obsess about it and we want to make it perfect.
Other questions? Got one in the front.
Hi, my name's Eiler from the Hong Kong Jockey Club. We're really focused on increasing basketball participation at the entire country level. So we're investing heavily in new features, new capabilities. Is there an interest maybe from AWS in further democratizing access to this kind of data, which would then allow, say, non-professional leagues or, say, well-equipped high schools or sports academies to make use of this kind of data, getting it out just away from the actual tournaments and into kind of the language of the game itself?
Are you speaking to like democratizing like NBA data to help inform?
In the sense that at the moment you're very dependent on having access from the Hawkeye data. So if you're to deliver this as some sort of package solution, say you say, okay, put 4 cameras into a court, you can have half of what the NBA achieves.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. I mean, again, we want to ensure that we are democratizing technology and helping bring solutions that we've built for the likes of the NBA to other entities around the globe. It's a great question. I love your question. And perhaps you and I could follow up after and talk a little bit more.
Excellent. Well, with that, I want to thank our panel very much for the insights. Appreciate getting a little bit more info around AI and how we're enhancing it through these partnerships. I would ask you all stick around. We're going to throw the Mavs Heat game on here shortly. Have that on the screen, so please hang out. Ask questions afterwards. We appreciate you all being here tonight. Have a great evening. Thank you.